Plaintiff Edward Summers says he has worked with kids with ADHD and ODD for 30 years, and that's how he met the defendant's son. Edward claims after the defendant's son was put on probation for theft, Edward took him into his home. But while there, he stole Edward's gun, so he's suing. Defendant Tina Harrison says after her son's grandfather passed away, Edward filled a void in his life. Tina was happy when her son went to live with Edward because she wanted him to get away from his peers, who were bad influences. And although she admits that her son stole the gun, she believes Edward's suing for more than she owes.
Start with you.
Give you a little background how I met Daniel in the first place. I've worked with kids with ADHD and ODD for about 30 years now. I've also worked with youth baseball as coach and umpire for about 18 years. I'm a disabled veteran. Through a friend of ours, I met Tina and Daniel and their family. We shared some barbecues, family dinners, and things like that, and Daniel started coming to my house, helping me out around the house, and I'd take him fishing and do things like that with him, play video games. They moved to a different town, and during the course of things, his grandfather passed away. He kind of adopted me as his substitute grandfather. Mm-hmm. He got himself into some trouble, broke into a house, ended up on probation, and subsequently didn't get along very well with his mother's boyfriend, so he got charged with runaway. At that point, he asked if he could come and stay with me. I talked it over with his mother and his probation officer, and they agreed that would be fine. He was going to school, everything was going well. I told him one of the conditions that he would be grounded because of his probation. If he wanted to see his friends from school, that'd be fine, but they would have to come to the house. They could play video games, whatever, being supervised.
What was his behavior like when he stayed with you?
He was doing really well. He was doing well in school, and he was getting along good with people. I was having some problems with the medication one evening, and I was having a blackout spirit because of it. He decided that was the evening he was going to see his friend down the street. His friend down the street got him involved with some drugs and talked him into coming and stealing some things from my house.
How do you figure that?
Well, he told me that's what happened.
Oh, he told you that he got talked into it.
Yes. I know that's not in his nature to be that way. And I know by being around him, he's become like family to me.
Good.
Plaintiff Edward Summers took the defendant's son into his home, but while there, he stole Edward's gun.
Let me talk to his mom.
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, what do you want to tell me about your son?
Well, as Ed had stated, him and I had met through a mutual friend. She was a single mom with 2 children. The son was going over to Ed's home. Ed had come over to our house for Thanksgiving, Christmas. You know, we would have our get-togethers. We became very close. It was that year that Daniel's papa had passed away, and it wasn't really a replacement, but it kind of filled that emptiness that Daniel had. And then Daniel had gotten with the wrong group of people. I have raised my child that no one has forced him to do anything. He has made his own decisions, and as his mother, I completely agree with that. But
Peer pressure is real, though, but...
Yeah, but he also knew, he knew that it was wrong. And Ed and I, when he had broken into the house, I called Ed and I was like, I really want to get him away from this group of kids. And Ed had lived about 30 minutes away from me, so it was easy to commute back and forth. And then when he had moved in with Ed and I both were in agreement that he wasn't going to go over there and run the streets. And Daniel's, unfortunately, he was on probation at the time, and it was the second time that court had gotten rescheduled on him. So 2 more weeks to him, I guess, felt like an eternity. So he couldn't take being locked up in the house anymore, and him and another juvenile had taken the gun.
Okay, and that's what you're suing for, this gun. That's what we're here for.
Yes, sir.
Young man, you want to step up?
Yes, sir.
State your name.
Daniel Harrison.
All right, and he's been diagnosed?
He was actually diagnosed after a 15-minute visit with a doctor.
So he's been misdiagnosed, you believe?
Now, looking at him now, I do. Now he's working a full-time job. We moved back to Florida. Everything, he has, there for a while, he turned into a child that, who are you and what have you done with my son? And now, I believe moving to Florida was probably the best decision I made. He's not with the bad people anymore. He's working a full-time job. He's going to be taking night classes to try to finish his education. And at this time, I couldn't ask for a better son.
So the gun situation, how is it that he owes $3,000 or his mom $3,000 for this gun? What type of gun was this?
It was a Mark IV Series 70 Colt, 1911 and 9mm. A friend of mine, when I was a kid, special ordered it because he shot in competition, and he had it modified. After he passed away, my father got the gun. And when he passed away, then I got the gun. And that part of the sentimental thing can never be replaced. There's not enough money to do that. A common gun like that normally will sell today for $1,200 to $1,500 at a gun show that's not modified. But the modifications that it had for target shooting and accuracy and all, the cost comes in the labor. I have some examples here if you'd like to see them about what a common gun.
Let's see what you have. But she seems like an honest woman. I mean, did you all discuss this? She seems like a woman who is otherwise willing to make things right. So why did you have to come to court?
Right. Even with Daniel's problems and being in juvenile detention and all, I allowed him to come to my house and try to work some of the cost off because
What happened?
he wanted to be an adult and take adult responsibility and take responsibility for his actions, which I think that's a great thing. He did work some off. With today's inflation and all, what a custom-made gun, you're still looking at $3,000 or a little more, even with what he's worked off.
Plaintiff Edward Summers took the defendant's son into his home, but while there, he stole Edward's gun.
So you changed this amount. 1 minute you said on the affidavit,
No, that's what the police.
you said 1,000.
That's what the police.
Then another on this letter, you telling her 3,000.
That's what the police officer wrote down for a common gun's price. He didn't realize it
Edward
had been
Summers
modified.
affirms. This is you affirming.
May I speak, Your Honor?
Yes.
The night that the police were called, I was actually at Ed's house when the police officer arrived. The very first time Ed was asked the value of the gun, it was stated $700. And then on the police report, it says $1,000. Daniel had gone to work and worked off $225 towards that $3,000. And when Daniel actually received this receipt and he came home with it, he said, "Mom, I don't understand why it's $3,000 now when it was only $1,000. I'm not going to keep working."
Did you ever say
because I'm gonna keep going up."
$700?
No, sir. The police officer was guessing at value, but I told him I didn't know since it was a customized gun. I would have to check in and see what the true value was.
So you signed the affidavit. You told him this.
I told him I didn't know, but
Oh, you told him it was 1,000.
I told him that's what a standard gun would cost without modifications.
And that's the reason being, Your Honor, that I don't really know the true value of the gun.
go
to
what
be
he
able to
told the
pay
law.
anything.
Now, what have you received for it so far, sir?
Pardon me?
$225? Did the young man give you $225 worth of labor?
Yes, sir.
All right. 1,000 minus 225 is what? I don't want you to go to jail, sir, if we do anything other than this. I don't want you to do that. You're working with youth.
I understand.
Set an example. And I applaud you for that. Not being funny, I really applaud you. The attention deficit hyperactivity young people are some of the most challenging to work with because they're so active, their minds are so active, they do so many things. I mean, my mother's friends tell me often now, I remember you used to crawl under the pews at church. We'd have to chase you. I would crawl from pew to pew, they say, when I was 4 or 5. I'd jump down off my mother and just start crawling. All type of activity, hyper. So I know the challenge that you work with, and I applaud you for doing that, sir. But on the other hand, we know that he has cost his mother dearly. Not just this, I promise you. This isn't the only thing she has incurred. Let's see it.
Those are the probation and the court costs that I have to pay.
Review of dispositional decree.
And they actually had waived house arrest charges for me so that it wouldn't be an unreachable
This
number.
isn't the first time, I'm sure.
No, sir.
All right. So she's had a lot of struggles. We're not going to keep, the juvenile and his family owes a total of $935. Yeah, we're not going to keep piling on, sir, because of your mistaken estimate. I got to go with what you put here. I can't go beyond the law. No, I can't break the law with you. This is a stolen property affidavit. You signed off on it, and I'm not gonna let you come here. You're not gonna get me locked up with you. Yeah, I worked too hard. All right, $775, sir. I can't go to jail. Me and Daniel have been to jail enough, right? Yeah. We're doing the right thing. Me and Daniel trying to do the right thing now. Have a good day. I'm sorry, sir. That's my judgment.